this visible that will make changes, and we are hugely thankful for your presence. We're here today as part of the vital job of fighting for our local services. We're here to fight for our community, we're here to fight for our family and for our friends. We know what we deserve. Under the NHS Constitution, we know what we are entitled to. But it's important to remember that this is part of a much larger national issue. The transformations that we see here at QEQM, that we see at other hospitals in Kent, are part of an initiative that began several years ago, the Getting It Right First Time initiative. That was granted £60 million in funding by Jeremy Hunt in 2016, with promises that it would save the NHS £1.5 billion over the time that it runs. It was also promised that if 140 trusts adopted it, they would save £100 million by 2020. And it's this initiative that has been responsible for so many of the transformations, from orthopaedics through to stroke services. And what we're seeing is a focus on standardisation. There are, of course, some admirable aims behind Getting It Right First Time. They're intending to reduce what they call unwarranted variation, to make sure that all areas get the same level of care. That's something I think we can all get behind. But the way that they are doing it is to centralise. It is to cut. It is to move. It's not to improve. It's not to apply extra funding. It is to make sure that things are centralised in particular areas. And the problem with standardisation is that people aren't standardised. Areas are not standardised.
We're too far away from a start.
Yes.
For our health.
Yes, for instance, if we think about Thanet as an area, we are geographically isolated. It is very difficult for us to get places. So the argument that I've had frequently with Dr. Hargroves at listening events, the argument in terms of getting it right first time, because he's the representative in relation to stroke services, is that as we have access to a hyperacute unit, we have the same standard of care as everyone else. The fact that it will take us an hour to get there, as opposed to maybe 8 minutes in central London, apparently is redundant. But the fact is that standardisation means that we suffer because of this. We are isolated, we have a vulnerable population, and we need an entirely different approach. I'm from a teaching background. If I get 30, well actually no, thanks to staff and class increases, 35 students in my class, my first thought isn't, how do I produce one lesson that fits everyone? It's, how do I find something that works for every single student? And what we need to be doing in terms of healthcare is making sure that what we do works for every single area, including our home and our community, and making sure that Kent as a whole gets 3 excellent hospitals and no longer has cuts.
Yes.
We are continually referred back to the studies. I know that Carly's covered it and she's covered it excellently, but because it's constantly put out there, I'm putting it out yet again. We have a study in London, we have a study in Manchester. They are both urban locations. If we extrapolate the survival rate, because they keep saying there is an increased survival rate and there is lowered disability, there is no evidence for reduced disability on either study. There is no record of deaths before arrival, which we will suffer from. And the uptick in survival, if you extrapolate from the London numbers, we will have approximately 1.5 people surviving more from this area. And that is even qualified within the study as being possibly due to simply the fact they have the centralised service. We are going to suffer here. And we need to make sure that our representatives, and I was really hoping to see both of our MPs here today, to be honest, it's our representatives that can raise national issues. This is a national programme and it needs to be raised within the House of Commons now. It should have been raised when it was first mooted, frankly. But what we can do now is to keep fighting. We are here to fight for our community. We are here to fight for our hospital and the people who work in our hospital. We are here to make sure that we have what we need, that we have health, we have security, we have the provision that we are entitled to under the NHS Constitution. We can do this. We have to be here, we have to be present, and we have to be as loud as possible. So keep shouting, because they cannot and they will not drown us out.